Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you Pope Francis of the Holy See.
In these times, when social concerns are so important, I cannot fail to mention the servant of God, Dorothy Day, her social activism, her passion for justice and for the cause of the oppressed were inspired by the gospel, her faith, and the example of the saints.
Our guest has been actively working for peace for nearly half a century. She's the co-founder of the Catholic Worker Movement, and she's the widely traveled lecturer, Miss Dorothy Day.
Okay, the only time that I ever saw Dorothy Day was when she was dead. A friend of mine called me and said Dorothy Day died, and I had heard that because it was on the radio. Because Dorothy Day was an important person in New York City, because in one way she was the conscience of New York City. And my friend said, let's go to her wake. So I went there. And it was in Mary House, and she was in a plain box with her house dress on. And next to the casket, there was one of the men from the street, and he was smoking a cigarette. And he was saying to himself, "It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a goddamn shame. It's a shame. It's a shame." So I went over to him and I said, "What's the matter, friend? What's the shame?" "She's dead. It's a shame." I said, you're very upset. Why? "She was a lady. She was a real lady." I said, "Why do you say that?" "Because she used to see me on the street every day, and she said hello to me. Nobody else ever did." That's the Catholic worker for me.
Can make me stop now as we go walking the Pulaski Highway.
Good afternoon. My name is Shwebu Njoya, and I am a NYC, New York City. Right now we're on First Street, between First and Second Avenue. This is the building of the Catholic Worker that was opened in the late 1960s by Dorothy Day. This facade has been here since they opened up this building. In an effort to promote social justice, we have been opening our doors to men and women from all over the world who are in New York City who are in need.
If your brother is hungry, you feed him. You don't meet him at the door and say, "Go be thou filled," or wait for a few weeks and you'll get a welfare check. You sit him down and feed him. And so that's how the soup kitchen started. As a matter of fact, we didn't start it at all. We were feeding a house full of people, but the soup line started because one of the men who had charge of the clothes room didn't have any more clothes to give out, so he began saying, "Just come in and have a cup of coffee." And so pretty soon a line formed at the door. Peter Morin was always in favor of soup, being a good French peasant, so it became a soup line. And we still have the soup line, a couple of hundred people a day coming in.
So from Monday to Friday, we do a soup line from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Men line up out here. We let them come in according to how much we can fill up the space. And they would fill up these seats. So whenever someone leaves, there'll be a line outside. And whatever the available seats, we let the people from outside coming in take over those seats and sit down and have soup. We'll give them as much soup as they want, as long as there's not a line outside. We have someone who's scheduled daily to come down and make a big pot of soup. So the extras we send over to Mary House, which is our sister house 2 blocks away. If you come this way, the soup is usually prepared in one of these pots over here. I'll show you this pot exactly. Let me show you. This is the super soup pot. I'm preparing the soup from all the vegetables, starch, or whatever else we like to put in the soup. Monday to Friday, from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m., we have the gentlemen line up outside. It's a men's clothing room, just so I can show you. Our sister house, Mary House, does a women's clothing room. This is actually extra stuff we have from our food delivery that we get once a week from an organization which has been a friend of the Catholic Worker for decades. Sort of like extras we have that we let people that walk in to use the restroom on Sundays take whatever they want, because we know that during the week we won't be able to get rid of it. So it's best to give it away to people that need it than to throw it out.
I don't know what else they do. And that's honest. I don't know what else they do.
How long do you acquaint with this organization?
About like 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah, about 3 months.
Okay, okay.
Okay? I don't know what else they do, but make sure you get my name right. My name is Daryl Freeman.
What is your name?
Daryl Freeman.
And where are you from?
Right here, New York.
Okay.
That's my good side.
Yeah.
I think the Catholic Worker is made up of people who believe that you can't compromise on the things that you believe in, who think it's really important to have your internal values aligned with your life, the way that you live, and so it ends up bringing a lot of strong personalities together.
I did not necessarily come from a place of faith, a religious place. I just came from more of a social justice idea of like helping people. I am not necessarily doing it because the Bible tells me so. I do it because I believe that it should be done.
The core of it has always remained the same, a basic continuity about those issues of the poor, against war, and for justice, and different periods of time, different ages, the American Depression of the 1930s, World War II, the post-war years, Vietnam, the world we live in now. In each age, the Catholic Worker has been present, trying to carry this message of justice and peace and aid for the poor, to try to help those who are left out and who are at the edge of society.
And so the Catholic Worker, and Dorothy Day in particular, in my mind, what they are sort of most well known for is the fact that it is a pacifist community, lay community within the Catholic Church.
I know this place is all about nonviolence, but sometimes I just want to break something. You know, you want to hurt someone. Of course, I'm human. Of course, I'm not going to do it. I get mad, I scream, I yell, I get upset because every day I see these people. I've lived on the streets and I know what it's like, and it's like it's unnecessary for like all these people not to have access to things that are just right in their faces. You know, like for things that they know that they don't understand. Like maybe they messed up in society's eyes, society shunned them, but no matter what, as long as someone's living and breathing, they should have access and the right to the same things that everyone else has. I strongly believe that if it is available to me and I don't need it, or I can share it, I should give it.
And there are always people coming there from all over the world, because they're giving a witness.
My name is Una Babwin, and I'm from St. Patrick's High School in Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada. And every 2 years we come with about 15 students down to New York.
The Catholic Worker is essentially a school, you might say. I mean, it's a place where a lot of young people come to us. It's a anarchist movement. And they come to us to learn more about this point of view of beginning a change from the bottom up rather than from the top down.
We sort of use the trip as a way to show the kids in a concentrated way everything that Catholic worker and what service might look like and how to give back, and how the idea of a hospitality house is everyone welcome. And then with the idea that when we go home, they will have sort of this better understanding, this better knowledge, this better understanding, and what can they do in their homes and in our hometown that will help better other people's lives, not to judge people, to give everyone a chance.
My name is Kathy Breen. I'm part of this community, the New York City Catholic Worker. This is Mary House. It's one of the last Catholic Worker city houses where one of our founders died in this house, Dorothy Day. If you look around, you can see that resistance is part of our life. And what I'm doing right now is preparing rag dolls who will be carried at a vigil at the UN in the week before Easter Sunday. We'll do a fast. And these women in full black garb will be holding rag dolls, dead children. And we used these before the war, over 14 years ago, in silent processions through the city with a drum to call for a halt to war. And yet we still went ahead and bombed Iraq, and now we're bombing Yemen, in addition to Syria, in addition to Mosul. We just can't seem to stop our war making because weapons are our biggest industry. So I think we lost the rag dolls, and so today I thought I would try to make a couple more. And we'll stitch these up and stuff them with rags and give them sort of an ashen color. And it's a very graphic symbol of mothers whose kids are being killed. Yeah, that's what we do. I was in Baghdad during shock and awe as part of a peace witness. And we said, if we live through this, we'll come home and talk about war, that war is not a game, that there are people at the end of those bombs. So I don't want to be doing this. You know, I'd rather be planting flowers, as Father Dan Berrigan, a great peacemaker, said. I don't want to be doing this, but we have to do this. We don't have a choice. The killing must stop, as Dan Berrigan would say. The killing must stop.
We're here to declare this killing must stop.
And communitarian revolution. And it has to begin with a personalist. And you begin with yourself. And you begin as an activist, changing yourself.
I personally am more of the Peter Morin school of thought, of personalism.
And he believed that all reform should begin from the bottom up rather than from the top down. And living as we are in a totalitarian era of Hitler's, Mussolini's, Stalin's, the whole philosophy of that part of the labor movement interested me. The Amalgamated Clothing Workers and the International Ladies Garment Workers both had cooperative housing for the poor.
Each individual that walks in here, at least the way I see it, is someone who's part of a community that we're trying to build. So I believe strongly that no size fits all. There will be days when I let someone come in and let them do something that we don't necessarily let other people do, not because I like them better, but because I know them. I've established a connection with a person, and that they are someone that I live with. They're my neighbor, you know. They're someone that I understand. I might not like them, they might not like me, but I know that they're in need. You know, it's not one size fits all. Oh, whatever you want, I'm going to give you. I have it. You need it. You get it. My favorite quote from the Catholic Worker is that one, actually. This is a picture of Dorothy Day, and this was taken the last time she ever got arrested. She was protesting for the rights of farm workers. I believe it was in California. Now, this is a quote from 1946. It wasn't made when this picture was taken, but it sums up pretty much what I understand she stood for. By crying out incessantly for the rights of the workers, of the poor, of the destitute, we can throw our pebble in the pond and be confident that its ever-widening circle will reach around the world. This is a quote she made in June 1946.
I was the chaplain at an art school, and we had made a decision amongst the students that any money that we collected every week, we would give more than half, just more than half, to the poor. And one year, for the whole semester, from September until December, we had collected all the money, and the students went home for Christmas. I decided to go and bring the money over to the Catholic worker. And when I got there, 30 seconds before I got to the door, a man got there who clearly was not well mentally. It was freezing cold. I was wrapped up. It was freezing cold. And he had no hat, no scarf, no gloves, no socks. He had shoes. And he had on a coat that was a summer coat. And he knocked on the door, and somebody from the Catholic worker came and answered the door. And the man said, "Do you have a pair of socks?" That's all he wanted. And the man behind the door said, "We have no clothing left. We have given out everything." And then he said, "Wait, come in." And he sat down and he took off his own socks and he gave them to the man. And I said, "I want to be a Catholic worker. I want to do that." And so ever since, I've been associated with the Catholic worker. I hesitate to call myself a Catholic worker because I haven't made the same commitment that other people have made, but it has had an enormous part of my spirituality and a very important part of my life. And now, usually every month at least, I celebrate Eucharist in one of the kitchens there for the people, because I can give bread, but I can also give the Eucharist.
Our Lord left himself to us as food, bread and wine. And I would say that sitting down and breaking bread with people, that the disciples at Emmaus knew him in the breaking of bread, and so it's far easier to see Christ in your brother when you're sitting down and sharing soup with him. You don't any longer see the destitute or the drunk or the disorderly or the unworthy poor.
We have Mass in this house once a week, and then have Mass at Mary House. So there would be, I think for most people, there's 2 Masses a week that they go to.
I used to live at the New York Catholic Worker in 1971, and I have lived in the neighborhood as a friend of the worker and participated in a lot of the activities for many, many years. I would say that most of the people who really had given their lives to the Catholic worker, or a period of their lives, they may just give a few years here, they would say that the purpose of their life comes from the gospel.
I think the majority of the community has always been Christian/Catholic.
I know that Dorothy herself read and studied the scripture course a lot, because you can tell that in her writings.
She herself was a countercultural person. She had come from a very sophisticated culture of New York City. She was friends with writers and authors and people in the theater. She knew the secular world. And then she had a conversion experience. And that conversion experience kept on converting her and bringing her closer and closer to the gospel. And everything she did was based in her faith. And she was criticized. She was criticized terribly by the church, by the people of the church, because she was embarrassing us, because she was doing what we should have been doing all along. Until finally people, when she died, people finally said, there's something there that we should have been paying attention to. And so now they want to make her a saint. But one of her famous quotes was, "Don't call me a saint." I don't know how we're going to get around that, because she said, don't do it, but we're going to do it. because she's worth it. Now, how did she become a holy person? By living the gospel. And all they're doing is what Jesus said to do. Feeding him, clothing him. Oh, when are we feeding you? Or when are we clothing you? Whenever you do it for the least of my brothers or sisters. It doesn't matter what color they are, it doesn't matter what religion they are, it doesn't matter how smart or how crazy or how drunk they are. It just matters that they are.
Dorothy was the spirit, ran the Catholic worker. So all those Catholic workers around the country were sort of dependent upon Dorothy's teaching and direction. And that is no longer true. Like, there is no longer a center for the Catholic worker. And so the Catholic worker is sort of still in a sort of formation.
What it is today is not what it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago or what it will be 10 years from now. It keeps on evolving. It evolves according to the group of people that are working here and volunteering here at a certain time. It changes according to the times of the place where we're in.
You know, we have to get ready for the next generation. And the next generation will not have the immediate experience of Dorothy. So they're going to go through another transition. They'll survive. Because what the Catholic worker is about is simple. Feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, comfort the afflicted. It's the works of charity, the works of mercy. And stay pure on that.
There is a tremendous growth in the peace movement, certainly in this country.
I've been a Catholic worker since 1988. It's now 2017. We have participated in many acts of civil disobedience, protesting war. We refuse to pay taxes to this government because more than 50 cents out of every dollar paid to the federal government goes to war making. So if we're going to end war, we have to stop paying for it, and we have to stop allowing our children to be used as soldiers to perpetuate the wars of the United States. We're obligated because we follow the example of Jesus Christ, a nonviolent revolutionary.
Stand here with that message every Friday, calling on people of faith and conscience and goodwill to join with us in the name of the victims.
As I have been a former government employee for most of my adult life and now am trying to use my voice for good, I look to our friends in Catholic Worker as great examples of people who have dedicated their lives toward helping others.
Normally, we stand right in front, directly in front of the White House. Dorothy Day, who is the co-founder of the Catholic Worker, She was arrested here at the White House in 1917 at the age of 20, advocating for the rights of women. She was part of the women's suffragist movement, and she spent 30 days in jail for her act of nonviolent resistance in 1917. And so we carry on that tradition here, standing with people who are committed to nonviolence, who are committed to justice, who are trying to call America, the people of this country, back to its conscience.
So this is calling on, following the example of Dorothy Day's Christian leadership.
And I admire very much what the Catholic workers do with their great resilience and power to speak truth to power.
Sometimes it can be difficult with personalities in a community. You have to learn to adapt, to be patient, to try to get along with other people. And so there is a challenge to it, but also there is support from a community too, that everyone is here and you have a sense of people sharing their lives.
Part of what first attracted me to the worker and part of what keeps me around more than anything else is that the way that this place refuses bureaucracy. So other parts of the world, or just other places I've worked, I should probably just say, insist on you becoming part of a larger organization, just becoming sort of an extension of that you have to do the things that are mandated and you have to follow the rules and act according to codes and avoid certain violations and things like that. And so it kind of dehumanizes you in a way and takes away the relational aspect of things. So you're no longer working with people, you're working as an organization, and you become not accountable for what you do because it falls back on the organization.
There's no rule. It's amazing. And all over the world, houses are coming up, calling themselves Catholic worker houses.
There are some rules to Catholic worker. They're not what it's like at the monastery.
It becomes a community discussion rather than looking to a book that has a list of rules and saying, we act because of this written rule here. We say we act because of what we've discussed and what we decide is right. And that's something I haven't experienced other places.
In the community here, you are free to live a New York life as well as being present here for the community and being part of it.
If I were to say I refuse to do that because I don't think it's right, it would be respected here because people appreciate sort of that personal sense of doing what you have to do. And so everything is kind of based on a personal relationship with people.
She took in people from the streets and gave them a place to stay warm when nobody else was doing that.
And that's possibly the most significant thing that Dorothy Day had done, was to recognize the nature of Christ's ministry in full and try to live it.
Whether the Holy Father has ever heard of the Catholic Church, the Catholic worker, I don't know. But boy, he could certainly be a member. He could easily be a member.
A nation can be considered great when it defends liberty, as Lincoln did. When it fosters a culture which enables people to dream of full rights for all brothers and sisters, as Martin Luther King sought to do. When it strives for justice and the cause of the oppressed, as Dorothy Day did.
It'd be fascinating to know how many people turned to Christ because they saw Christ in her.
God bless America.
If ever Christ does not look like somebody in the street, or if ever somebody in the street does not look like Christ, stop and pray.
I always say if you start praying and saying, Lord, what will you have me do? Prayers are answered, and you find yourself doing a lot more than you ever thought you were going to do, getting yourself involved.